Well, I'm now joined by Mr. Tony Abbott from Australia, the former RPM over there. Let's try and have word with him and understand. Sir, we saw a lot of discussions of yours since yesterday. How do you look at India's position right now and the way globally India is playing role in several things, be it global developments, be it conflicts like Ukraine and Russia? How do you look at it?
Look, I think India is really coming into its own as a globally significant strategic and economic power. I'm incredibly pleased that India is now a second democratic superpower in the wider world, and under Prime Minister Modi, India really is more than pulling its weight. It's really become quite the global influence, and it's really stopped that strategic, what's the right word? I mean, for many decades, India had a kind of detachment from the problems of the wider world, and I think under Modi, it's fully engaged, fully involved, and that's good for everyone.
Sir, if we see and talk about, many say that India is right, especially very first thing, India is right now heading the G20 presidency. How do you look at this whole role of G20 presidency out there?
Look, the G20 is probably the world's greatest collection of economic power, and I think with economic power comes military and cultural power as well. I can't think of a better person to chair the G20 right now than Prime Minister Modi, given A, his personal charisma and quality, B, his genuine decency, and C, the almost spiritual quality that he brings to his leadership. I also think that India's tradition of detachment from some of the long-running quarrels of the world and India's history, its benign record as the subcontinental superpower, I think stands it in good stead to help to manage some of the tensions and difficulties of this time.
Yesterday we saw a Quad meeting taking place. How do you look at it? There are several discussions that happened. One of them was all about counter-terrorism. With respect to India, India has impacted two important terrorist attacks like Pathankot and 2611 Mumbai.
Yes.
Even that was discussed. How do you look at the Quad meetings and the way for the future ahead?
Well, obviously all the Quad countries have a lot to learn from each other, and all the Quad countries have a lot to do to help each other. And yes, India has been in the front line of serious terrorism for quite some decades now. So I think it's good that the Quad is focused on that. But look, the biggest challenge that we face in our region is China's belligerence under the CCP. While we're all naturally horrified by what Putin's war is doing to Ukraine, any attack across the Taiwan Straits would be worse by several orders of magnitude in terms of the devastation that it would cause and in terms of the disruption that it would cause to the entire world. So really, the principal challenge of the wider world right now is to let Beijing know in completely unambiguous terms that there will be dire consequences if it tries to change the status quo by force. And we really do need to raise the cost to Beijing of any aggression across the Taiwan Straits, and that has been one of the consequences of the Quad, to raise doubts in Beijing's mind about just who it would face if it decided to take on Taiwan.
So at times it is somewhere, very aggressive in mode, and at times it is the other way around. How do you look at the China?
China sometimes changes its tactics, but it never changes its strategy. It sometimes speaks softly, it sometimes speaks loudly, but in the end it's all about the dominance of the CCP, and that's something we can never forget.